All right, guys. Hope you enjoyed my video on murder hornets. Definitely a little over the top, but let's get into the actual science of what's going on in here. So, what is a murder hornet? It's a hornet. It's a giant Asian hornet that is endemic, so it lives in Asia. That's where the populations are. It plays a crucial role in the ecosystem there. It hunts insects. It keeps them in check. It actually has a good role in the ecosystem there. Obviously, it causes problems. Somewhere between 50 and 80 people in Japan per year die from usually allergic reactions from them, but that happens in North America too. So maybe the craze about them is overblown. Maybe it's not. We'll talk about that here in a little bit. So it is. It does live up to its name. It's about 2 inches body length with its wingspan. It's about 3 inches, and it is the world's largest hornet. Um, the stinger is long enough that a bee suit doesn't prevent you from being stung by it. And if you saw in the video, they say it feels like being stabbed by hot metal. So not something you would want to mess around with. So where was it found? In North America, a nest was discovered pretty close to Washington, right off Vancouver Island. They destroyed that nest. They're wondering, uh, is it still in Washington? Were there other nests? Do we still need to worry about hunting it down? Probably what happened is there was a shipment from Asia. There was some of the some of the wasps, the hornets, on that shipment, and they were able to get a little bit of a foothold here in North America. Uh, has it passed Vancouver Island, where there was a confirmed sighting? There was one that was found dead in Blaine, Washington, which is up by the Canadian border. So yes, it's been found in Washington, and there's been other potential sightings. We're not for sure yet. Uh, the Department of Agriculture expects them to start coming out in April. So it's the middle of May now, so we might be seeing some more in our area. So why are people so worried about it? So I said before, it lives in Asia. That means it's an invasive species here, and we talked about invasive species previously. Invasive species can totally destroy an ecosystem. If you look at Capitol Lake is shut down for anything swimming, boating, or anything like that because there is an invasive species in Capitol Lake. It's these tiny, uh, super tiny little mussels. Um, uh, have a hard shell on them, but they just repopulate like crazy. So they're an invasive species. There's nothing that actually hunts them, and that would be the problem here. They wouldn't have anything that could defend against the hornet, and we don't have anything that would probably hunt the hornet. So it could just kind of go through the system unchecked. That's the issue that we have with them. So took this took this quote from Washington State Department of Agriculture. It says if they become established, it is claimed that the hornets could decimate bee populations in the United States and establish such a deep presence that all hope for eradication could be lost. So a full-scale hunt for the species by the Washington State Department of Agriculture is underway. So that is very important right here. So that if they become established, they will not be able to be eradicated. So then we would have to deal with them. Um, there's ways that we can deal with them for commercial beehives. You can put some stuff around the entrance so they can't get inside. But there's still other bee populations that could be definitely influenced by this. So the Washington State Department of Agriculture, it's kind of cool. They've asked the public to help out by making traps. And on the Washington State Department of Agriculture website, they actually have a specific way to make these traps. And then you're supposed to send these. If you catch any hornets, you're supposed to send these onto the Department of Agriculture office so that they can keep track of if there's any Asian hornets in the area. So if that's something that you're interested in, either go on the website and look it up, or send me an email and I can talk to you a little bit more about that. But it's kind of citizen science where they're saying, hey, we don't have the manpower to do this ourselves. We want to have the public help us out with this. So if we look at Japan, Japan has bees. Japan has honeybees. Japan's honeybees are fine. They're not really having too much of a problem with this. So what is the big deal? Why are we so worried about it? Why are we saying that the honeybees here are going to be decimated when the ones in Japan are totally fine? So this is where our story of evolution begins. So Japanese honeybees have evolved a mechanism to protect them against the giant hornets. They'll actually surround the hornet. Sometimes a few hundred bees will surround it. They'll start beating their wings. They'll raise the temperature to about 115 degrees Fahrenheit. If it's in the hive, they'll also raise the carbon dioxide levels. The hornet cannot deal with the heat, cannot deal with the CO2, and the bees can. So they can kill a hornet that way. So they have evolved a way to do that. They had a pressure on them. They had that trait, and that trait was able to help them survive. So this is a picture of them cooking it. You see that they've surrounded it. They're much, much, much smaller than the giant hornet, but there's enough of them they can surround it, heat it up, and essentially cook it to death. So likely, the honeybees in North America don't have that trait, or most of them don't. I'm not going to say that they don't, but most of them probably don't have that trait. So then the first question, this is a big question. I saw this question come up, and I thought it was a really good question. Can we bring bees from Japan, put some of them in a hive, and kind of teach the honeybees in North America to defend their hives? It kind of makes sense. They could see what's going on and maybe learn from it, because honeybees are very intelligent creatures. No, that's not going to happen. We can't bring in some Japanese bees to teach our North American bees to do this. For us to send this trait on generation to generation, it has to be found in the DNA. Just because you learn something, it does not mean it's in the DNA. So no, that's not going to happen. So let's look at another question. Another question is, could the bees here evolve this trait? Possibly. So to answer this question, we need to go back to the 4 factors of natural selection that we talked about in the previous slideshow. Differential survivorship and reproduction, variation, inheritance, and selective mechanisms for those adaptations. So for that first one, if there were bees that had this trait of being able to surround and cook these hornets to death, would that allow them to survive better? Well, probably. They're not getting decapitated by hornets. They have a higher likelihood of survival. So that would be a good trait that would definitely probably get passed on. This one is the one that to me is probably the biggest thing. For a trait to get passed on, it has to already be in the population, or we have to have a mutation that comes about. The likelihood of a mutation that causes them to suddenly be able to cook a wasp to death, a hornet to death, likely not going to happen. But the possibility is that there might already be some honeybees in the United States, in North America, that have this ability. They have the ability to understand that they can surround the hornet and cook it to death. So that's the big kicker. Is this gene, is this ability already in the DNA of the honeybees? And if it is, it's probably able to be inherited. We can pass that along. And then that last one, selective mechanism for these adaptations. The presence of that hornet being in an area, killing bees, is a selective mechanism. It is putting pressure on those bees to adapt. So if we do have that gene, in our bees, there's a possibility that we can see the honeybees here evolve that trait. Um, so again, evolution isn't some magical thing where bees suddenly become able to do something. No, there's that trait, there's that DNA, there's that gene that's already there. It just at this point it hasn't become useful, so it might be in such small percentages that we don't see it. But if there is this selective mechanism of the giant hornet, we might see this trait become established. And if not, we could, if we go back to all the way here, if we don't stop them, if they don't have this, if our honeybees don't have this trait to defend themselves, then we could go back to this quote here where could decimate bee populations in the United States. That's not a good thing. We rely on bees for a ton of our agriculture, and that's why the Department of Agriculture is trying to nip this in the bud so much. All right, so that is some insight into the murder hornets. If you have any questions, let me know. You'll have a short quiz on this later, and the quiz code will be 611. So when you see the quiz up there, put in that code. If you follow along and listen to this, you should be easily able to answer that. All right, guys, talk to you later. Hope you enjoyed the video.